Hello, it's me, Russell. Thank you for joining me for this Zoom call, free only to subscribers for what is being currently called either a nexus, an alliance, an elite, a cabal. It's a mailing list, but that seems like such a tedious bit of language. Hello, those of you that have used your wavy hands, I respond to your wavy hand with a wavy hand of my own. I'm talking about you, Keelan J, and you, Kyra K, Kyra Kiz. I see you people there. Thanks for coming on. Kim, hello. Hello, Sasha. Hello, Nikki. Demaya. I'm actually in the same room as Demaya, socially distanced, of course. Bilal, Gil, David, hello. Hello, all of you. I'm so glad to see you all. We're doing this call for free for you, members of our community. Later on, we're going to do a meditation. Well, it's not really a meditation, it's breath work with this teacher called Biet. Biet Simkin does this breath work. It's pretty extra. Demaya, are you going to do it?
I don't think that's wise for me.
Oh, really?
I need to be able to function work mode, you know?
Demaya's working, and Demaya, like me, is in recovery from drugs and alcohol. But this breath work is unbelievable, right? You do these type of, I mean, obviously she'll teach you, she's the teacher, but I've done it several times. It's a trip. And those of you that are in recovery, you will enjoy the free buzz, because I know I do. So I've got some things I've got to tell you, some housekeeping things. But before that, let me answer this first question that was sent in advance by Charlie. And I'm really glad, by the way, that you've taken time from across the world to turn up here. Let me have a look at like the people in the chat. There's people, there's people from New Zealand, there's people in France, Auckland, which I recognise is also New Zealand. I understand geography. I know what geography is. It's places, and it's to do with layers of rocks and perhaps possibly a pond. I remember geography. I went to school. I was paying attention for some of it. It seemed that there was a bit of a priority to, indoctrinate me a bit. I'm not blaming the teachers. I know teachers don't like a good blaming, and I love a teacher. Who doesn't love a teacher? Chatham, UK. You've got nerve putting it on there. Who is it that said that? Steve Loft. Steve Loft, the most Chathamist person there is. Hello, Jean. Hello, Karen. Hello, Keith Thorpe. Hello, all of you. Who's this person that's just on a walk? Stephanie Hayes is just bowling through life. Rosanna Dean swilling down something from a water bottle that, for all I know, could be gin, bathtub gin. Robbie McKenzie, I adore you. Helen D, hello Willie, hello Peter Wallace, hello all of you. Thank you for signing up to my mailing list, or Nexus or Alliance or whatever we're calling it. Charlie Warburton, a young person, welcome, young person, welcome. Thank you for joining it, and thanks very much for making the time to do this. Let me just respond to this first little question from someone calling themselves Charlie. How do you find you can manage your impulse control? Oh, Charlie, what a question. It's so hard to manage the impulse control. I've been struggling with it. It's like another part of my brain fires on and takes over. I bet if we were neurologists, that is literally what does happen. With my dog, Bear, if he sees an animal that he's going to chase, there's a moment where you can control him. There's a moment where you can go, Bear, don't chase that animal. But there's a point where it's too late now. He's gone. Any addict will recognize a sort of a similar process. Me, quite recently, with the Lindt chocolate bunny. There was a moment where I saw that Lindt chocolate bunny and I thought, that bunny belongs to your daughter. But then there's a point where I thought, who cares about family? Family, to hell with those kids. I'm eating that fucking thing. And then I started nibbling its little ears. It wasn't even refrigerated the way I like it. And then I fucked that whole rabbit right over. And I mean that in a metaphorical sense. I ate it. I didn't do anything untowards with the rabbit. I just ate it. But by God, it was good stuff. But then what did I feel after? Shame. Shame. I had Lindt shame. For God's sake. That's why I can't take heroin. If you can't eat a chocolate rabbit without feeling shame, you're probably best to stay away from smack. Put that on your T-shirt. Put it on a T-shirt. A lot of you have been thinking, is that an elephant's leg? Or is it, what is that? It's a tree trunk. Some of you will know. Some of you will be wondering, did you do that sewing yourself? The answer is, of course, yes. All right, so let's see what Charlie was asking about impulse control. My impulses aren't hurting anyone around me, only myself. Well, that's important, Charlie. You don't want to hurt yourself, darling. What can I do? All right, well, we need to learn some prayer and meditation, Charlie, so that when those impulses do come, they're coming into a different environment, so we can control, so that we can observe those impulses. So those impulses are taking place in an environment where we've got a little more, where we do have the opportunity to control. Like, remember, I'm offering you this advice from an imperfect place, because even though like I may have been struggling when it came to that little Lindt chocolate rabbit who I devoured, I've been doing pretty good on the crack and the heroin and the alcohol. I've been pretty good around the pornography and compulsive behaviors in other areas of my life for a little while now. What I do is I make sure that there is a foundation of peace within me because of the prayer and the meditation and the service and a lot of the 12-step stuff. So you've got to build yourself a platform. Don't expect this to be miraculously healed overnight unless you know a hypnotist or some neuro-linguistic programmer or possibly an EDMR person or a tapping person. All these things might be helpful, all these technologies, and there's advice for all of them. We'll post, we can post information to you about all this stuff, Charlie. But I find that really the only solution to being governed by external things is to cultivate the spiritual life. So all external phenomena has less power over you. By spiritual life, I mean precisely these things: meditation, prayer, service of others, and recognizing continually that the summit of your experience here on earth cannot be the gratification of your own senses. I say this from a position of experience because if I'm not careful, I drift back to selfishness. That's what I drift back to. Now, let me just tell you these other things. I've got this is important to me. I've got what is called an Audible. Look, listen, hold on a minute. Who's that? Tara Aldaltava is on their actual phone here. Tara, put the phone down. You can't make a phone call during a Zoom call. That's too much stuff. Like, what if I was to start picking up this phone? It all gets a bit buy, sell. What is this, the 80s? Who are you, Gordon Gecko? What are we in, Wall Street? For focus, woman. And what do you know what I like? This is, if we ever do start a cult, and we will, I like the idea that I'd be able to watch people and go, would you mind not doing that? Like a real little busybody running a cult. What a joy that would be. If there is a cult, there'll be no cameras. We need total autonomy, lateral democracy. Don't follow leaders, watch your parking meters. What I was doing there is a little thing called comedy that I used to do for a livelihood. Now, I've got this thing coming out called an Audible Original. Audible Original means it's an audio book that's on the platform called Audible Original. It's like a book. It's called Revelation, and what it is I wrote it during lockdown, and I recorded it here in this very studio where I am now. And I talk about spiritual solutions to the problem of being. It was going to be sort of like an odyssey of meeting like spiritual folk and doing a whole bunch of spiritual shit. And in fact, Wim Hof is in there because I'd done that before lockdown started. But it's ended up being about sort of like the spiritual response to the sort of tiny catastrophes that occur continually in life. The death of my cat. Oh man, the death of that cat messed me up. It was a real spiritual encounter, digging a grave for that little guy, rubbing soil on my face in a moment of passionate, grief-ridden madness. In this book, Revelation, an accompaniment to revolution, I talk about how there can be no radical political change without accompanying spiritual change, which we can only really take responsibility for ourselves. But perhaps if we do it in communion, in harmony, are we going to leave that bit of hair out? I don't think so. Like without that, there's no hope for us. If you want this book, Revelation, I recognize it costs some money, unless you're already on Audible, and then you can sort of use a token for it or something like that. If you can afford it and you want it, get it. If you can't afford it and you don't want it, don't. I'll continue to do as much for you for free as I can reasonably do with the overheads that I've accumulated. You think these little shirts by themselves? Well, actually they do. Someone sent me it for nothing. But a lot of the other things, like the electricity here and this microphone and this laptop, guess what I paid for that with? It wasn't charisma, at least not directly. Charisma, sort of charisma, basically, but it was charisma via an economic system and an entertainment industry. Hey, so Under the Skin this week is with David Kessler. He's a grief expert. It's a brilliant episode of Under the Skin. He talks about literal grief, the loss of his own son. His son died. His 20-year-old son died when David Kessler was already a grief counselor. So he attended like grief support groups, and the books that they were using were books that he had written himself. And he realized, he'd suffered a lot of grief in his early life anyway, but like this experience of grief later in life made him a beginner again. And what do we talk about in meditation all the time? Beginner's mind. So you might want to listen to Under the Skin as well. Now, that's enough of that stuff. And here, let me have a little look, because I've actually got access to the thing, and there's loads of people who've got their hands up. There you go. Rhonda, you're being asked to unmute yourself and ask me whatever the hell it is you need to know.
Hi there, how are you?
I think I'm well. I hope I'm well. How are you today, Rhonda?
That's good. And I was actually named after the Beatles song, the Beach Boys song. Help me, Rhonda.
That's an incredible look you've got there.
Oh, thank you.
Look amazing.
Thank you. I just wanted to say how grateful I am to you for doing what you're doing. I watched Nick Ortner with you the last time. I had my entire family within a 10-month period of time die.
Oh, fuck.
And if it wasn't for Brad Yates, who's also a tapper, and Nick Ortner, and breathing techniques and Qigong, I don't actually think I'd be here. I have healed myself with energy work.
Wow.
And it's work like you and the internet and being able to connect with YouTube and be able to get access to stuff like this for free by knowing how to find the links and tap into them, that I have been able to bring myself back from a very, very dark place. And I thank you for the work that you have done.
Rhonda, what a fantastic compliment. Thank you. And anyone that's interested in seeing that tapping workshop that Rhonda's referring to, there's a link to it in the email that you got the link for this free call from. So you can go and check that out. His app is called The Tapping Solution. And, he's got a lot of free meditations on there. Thanks a lot for saying that, and well done for surviving a catastrophe like that. Some things are so painful and difficult that only a spiritual solution is of any use to you, I would say.
Yeah. And I started every single morning when I woke up with breath work, pranayama breath work, and then tapping. Those were the first two things I did every morning for months to get myself up and going. And I find now I do a lot of breath work, meditation, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. But I have a toolbox full of energy work that if I start to go off the rails, I know how to instantly, it's to the point now that even my husband, who is very supportive of me, but doesn't follow this, if he sees me getting into an old pattern, will say, did you need to go tap? Did you need to go do that? So it's interesting that he's aware enough to know what sort of tools I need at the time as well. So yeah, but breathwork's amazing.
Rhonda, that's really good. Rhonda, thank you very much for your compliment and for your comment. And any of you that want to check out those apps, you can do. And also the work that we're about to do with Biet, I'm sure a lot of you will find super appropriate and helpful. We're going to do that in a little minute. Now, when it comes to this breath work that we're going to do in a minute, is that Alaura down there?
Yeah.
Alaura, you're living in a world of pots and pans and knives. What a magnificent culinary world of wonder we find you in.
I know, especially as I can't go out to restaurants. I have to cook at home.
I've learned some good cooking.
Well, I'm slowly becoming a vegan, so that feels good.
But don't try and impress the vegans. Nothing you do will be good enough for them.
No, it's so true. But I'm kind of doing it for health. But I'm in California. I'm from Hackney in the East End. And I love all the stuff you do. I actually came to see you in, was it Hendon-on-Thames or?
Henley,
a couple of years ago. I was in London. So my question is, I lost the person that I was really in love with and got married because he had a secret sex addiction and he was hooking up online and with sex workers, blah, blah, blah. And I was absolutely brokenhearted, but it took me on this, what's going on, with this sex addiction and pornography, and really seeing it as an epidemic. And I think they're saying the average age that kids are exposed to pornography is 8 and 9 years old.
Shit.
And, and I was talking to a friend about it recently, and it really does seem to be an epidemic, and I feel that it's really changing kids, but it's changing all of us on so many levels with intimacy and sexuality. And I don't know how we change this. So I'd love to know your thoughts about it.
I think about this a lot, to tell you the truth, because it's sort of hardly a secret that I've had issues with sex addiction and promiscuity and pornography when I was younger. And I think it must really affect our wiring. I think any sort of addictive behavior that is related to sort of a biological imperative has sort of a real supercharge to it. And from when I heard about the kind of the access that young people, and obviously as you were describing it, children have like to pornography, I became like super concerned about that. I heard someone once say, like, you know, in 10 minutes you can see more naked bodies than our ancestors would have seen in a lifetime. You just would be exposed to so much flesh. And, you know, I heard someone say pornography is not bad because it shows us too much, but because it shows us too little, that we look beyond the honor in ourselves and the honor in the other person, and you know, to a sort of another place and another type of experience. And I'm only speaking for myself. My mate Matt Morgan used to say about me with my various forms of addiction that I'd been I was like someone who had eaten everything at an all-you-can-eat buffet and then just stood there saying, "You won't enjoy this. You don't need this stuff." You know, like so, like you know, I'm aware that other people have got their own path and got, like, you know, when we're talking about like a young person there, like Keelan or whatever, he's going to have the experiences that he has, like that he's going to have, same as I'd needed to have the experiences that I had. But my sense is that there's an underlying theme with all of these problems. Addiction is the belief that some external thing can medicate your inner life. Now, I mean, you know, all right, you know, you could say the same of oxygen or food. These are external things that we require. But the commodification of sex, the use of sex in the way that has become sort of culturally normal, I think the impact of it is difficult to estimate. And in terms of the solution to it, I feel there is no area in our life, increasingly, this has always been true for addicts, but it will become true for all of us, because we are all addicted to our culture. We are all addicted to our ego. We're all living through attachment. First, attachment to the idea we have of ourselves, and then attachment to the matrix of external stimulants that interrelate or interconnect to this inner, what I want to call it, this sort of inner icon that we've constructed of ourselves. It's only by letting go of this belief about ourselves, our own identity, that we can have any hope of overcoming our attachment to this external stimulation. Put in more prosaic and ordinary language, we need to have a program around things like pornography. You need to, like, I believe that if you're a person that finds that behavior problematic, see, like when I was talking there about eating that chocolate rabbit earlier, nothing wrong with eating a chocolate rabbit. Maybe there's people on this call who can eat as many chocolate rabbits as they want. Me, though, when I do it, I feel bad. Same with pornography. I'm not making a judgment for you about your use of pornography. You do what you got to do, as long as it's consensual and it's not hurting nobody, of course, obviously. But like for me, I have to be careful about it, because I get in there and it becomes like my spirit. It becomes like my values. It becomes like my meaning. So I have to be very, very careful. I have strong appetites, and these appetites have to be directed towards, in my language, God. Again, this is what I'm talking about in that book, Revelation, is that everything has to be directed towards God. Otherwise, I make God of other things. If my God is not about inner connection, outer connection, service and devotion, my God will become pornography, cake, power, all of these things. And I don't think I am unique. I think I'm ordinary, extreme in a few ways, like most of us, you know. But like, so I feel like we need a program around it. Culturally, Christ, we need some values and some regulations. Not really, you know, it's beyond any individual to speculate what the solutions might be. But individually, I would say be extremely cautious. And anyone that's got any problems around addiction at all, that in a sense you're fortunate, because now you know, you've had the hand, you've had the touch, you've got the mark, you've been told, for you must walk the spiritual path. That's why anyone here that's been identified as a drug addict or as having mental health problems, in a sense, we are fortunate. It sounds to me like you've been on a real journey yourself, a real journey of having your heart broken, feeling betrayed and rejected, and then learning through that you had invested in a person qualities that they could never carry, given them a power that they were incapable of fulfilling. Robert Johnson, the great writer, and I think you get his stuff on Inner City Books, and I think Inner City Books are on the call. A lot of the Edinger stuff that I'm banging to, a Jungian analysis, like they publish his things. Like they would say, Robert Johnson talks about giving your gold to someone. We give our gold to mentors and say, will you carry me? Will you guide me? When I'm talking to like a young person like Keelan there, and he says, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? And then I hear that he's 19, I recognize that there is an exchange happening and that I have a responsibility as an older man talking to a younger man, saying to him, when you're recognize what you're dealing with in this world, recognize what you're investing in, recognize where you're putting your attention. This is why these tech companies, we have to be cautious of them, because what is it they control and manipulate? Our attention. And what is our attention? Our consciousness. And what is our consciousness? Our life. And what is it? Possibly God itself. So we're talking about the control of God. If God is consciousness, then they're manipulating God. We are creating reality. If we ain't good, God ain't good. We have a huge obligation to become God. We manifest God's kingdom on earth through our goodness. These are other things I talk about in the book Revelation, maybe not in such a spontaneously tangential way, but I talk about them nonetheless. I hope that's of some use to you there. Is it Arla? Was that is that the correct way of saying your name?
Alaura. Yeah, no, that was really helpful. And I think
I bet. A man ranting is usually the answer for a woman.
It was a ranting, yeah. But no, it was helpful to that part. I mean, I know that even though I was brokenhearted and all of that, that it gave me a chance to look at my own addictions and my own codependency, and also being single and not in relationship for 6 years. For the first time in my life since I was 13, it's given me a chance to really be like, oh, what is it like to be on my own? And who am I? And still taking off the layers. And also looking at, oh shit, I've got my addictions as well.
Yes. Please God, you next time you walk down that road and you see that sign, you might take a different pathway now, you know? That is what is, I think, very, very positive about that. So it's wonderful to hear your experience so beautifully rendered, Alaura. I think we've got Biet on the call, and we're going to in a minute we're going to go over to Biet. So just to give you some heads up on practical stuff, those of you that are going to do this exercise, it's a trip, and you might want to be, as dear Isabella Helen is, you might want to be, hello my dear, you might want to be sat somewhere where you can do a breath exercise, and somewhere where if you fall over, it ain't going to be too much of a problem. You'll be doing this exercise on your knees, but only so that you can walk tall later. For example, I'm going to move out there and get on my knees and move my laptop and all sorts of stuff when we introduce Biet. But before we do that, I love it when it starts to feel like a radio show, you know. It's really cool. When I start saying before we do that, we're going to go live in a minute. We're going to be going to Biet. But before we do that, we're going to be taking one more caller. Let's choose that caller at random. Lesley L. That's a blue icon with 2 L's on it. Beneath someone called Megan Franco, who's got a picture there. Can you find them and ask them if they want to unmute? Lesley, how you doing?
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
Hiya. This is a pleasure to talk to you, Russell. Big time.
Pleasure to talk to you, Lesley.
Love everything that you do. I was just wondering what your idea of a community would look like. We are involved in doing one up in Scotland at the moment and have been for the last 2 years.
I'm not sure yet. Well, how's yours going?
Very well. And massive experience, lots and lots I could talk about, but it's mainly run by one woman and a couple of friends that she took 8 people out of society for 12 weeks and introduced them to tapping, to breath work, to meditation, to, you know, deal with their addictions, deal with their issues, deal with different things, to show them a different way, a more natural way, getting back in harmony with the land and all that kind of thing. So it was very interesting. Lots of problems, lots of issues.
Lesley?
Sorry?
You in this community?
Yeah. No, I wasn't personally one of the people, but I'm one of the helpers round about it. They've just secured.
What challenges did they have, mate?
Sorry?
What issues and challenges did they have?
There was an ex-drug addict. There was obesity. Eating's a big thing. Depression, anxiety, arthritis. Lots of different things that we can show them holistically and how to heal the body through different ways and different methods. The kind of leader that does it, Lily, is, you know, an expert in Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton and all that, showing them a different way, showing them all the things that you talk about and all the things that we're involved in, teaching it to people, showing them things, showing them, you know, a new way of life, and then off they go back into society again. And it's how they deal with that. Do they go back to Western ways, their old ways, or do they continue to learn and grow in other ways. So it was split very 50-50, but they've now secured premises up in Scotland for people to come to. So it's moving into the next phase, but it's really, I just wondered what your idea would look like.
Right, here's mine. Because remember, like, I'm a potential messianic megalomaniac. There has to be total democracy. Everything has to be like run anarchically. I don't mean anarchically as in chaotically. I mean anarchically as every voice in the community is equal and able to be heard. I suppose we'd have to agree on some central principles, and I suppose that those central principles might be sort of equality, the sharing of the labor and the running of the community, the prioritization of spiritual principles, which would have to be agreed upon, but would include techniques such as those that you've just described. I think there's probably a limit of scale when running a spiritual community, and it's probably along the lines of how the primates we are evolved from separate and split. Around 75 to 100, you have separate units. In my ideal version, we would have a confederacy of syndicates of independent communities that operated as confederacy to achieve a kind of globalized nation, separate from the commodified consumer ideals of the dominator culture. I reckon what we would prioritize is meditation, spirituality, but we would choose from different modules. What might be good for, say, Tara there might not be good for David Sanders. What Wes might be into might not work for Andy L. So we would all choose our particular pathways, you know. We would choose the kind, but I reckon there might be some principles around the kind of food we ate, the way that we used energy, the kind of language we use when talking to one another. One of the things that my wife always points out when I'm saying, why don't we start a community and overthrow the machinery of the state and create a global revolution based on spiritual principles, is, Russell, you like being on your own a lot. You'd struggle if you had to do sort of washing up with like 10 people and that, singing a jaunty song about the cycles of the moon. Like she points out that I need to spend about 15 hours a day alone, sometimes staring at my phone, you know. But the point of this community is, like, you know, to the connection, togetherness and continuity, that we could make each other better instead of living, you know. I recognize the kind of things I'm prey to: egotism, salaciousness. But if I live in a culture where I'm encouraged to be kind and of service, I reckon it would bring out those better aspects of my own nature. If we live in cultures that are competitive and focused on the, you know, to become who I became, I had to utilize my vanity, my ability to perform, my egotism, my maleness. Like, and I'm not suggesting that maleness is a wholesale negative thing. Wonderful aspects to maleness, of course there are, but there's certain qualities that came to the forefront in order that I could get out of my situation of origin and become who I needed to be. But I reckon if I lived in a culture where different values were promoted, the kind that we're talking about, equality, service of one another, love of one another, mutual respect for all different forms of identification, and we could form these communities around whatever values we wanted to, as long as at the core of it is a kind of, I suppose, an honor and regard for the inner life and the service of one another, I reckon we get on just fine. I reckon what that person you're talking about is doing a great job, and I reckon there's a room for a lot more communities of that nature, Lesley. But now we're going to have to thank you, and I hope that helped you with your inquiry. And I'd love to learn more about that. In fact, could you put in the chat the name of that community and stuff in case we want to learn more about it? Why don't we go over now to my friend and great teacher, Biet. Oh my God, she's not disappointed. She's come with a magnificent haircut, some incredible goggles. She's unmuted herself and she's marvelous. Biet, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this Zoom call.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Biet, I will, unless there's anything that you want to talk about before, I'm really happy to hand over. But before, I'll introduce you by saying that Biet and I have worked on some breath stuff together. It's some, you know, there are many techniques. I'm sure there's loads of things Biet's not introduced me to yet, but the stuff that I've done with Biet I found very, very helpful, and gave me, as a person that lives now without narcotics, psychedelics or drugs of any kind, a sort of an experiential certainty of other planes of consciousness, ever present and accessible, but elusive due to the limitations of our sensory experience of reality. And who doesn't want that on a Thursday afternoon? But yeah, I'll hand it over to you and you can take us through, and I'm here to serve you in whatever way I can. I'll leave myself unmuted, I guess, Demaya, in case I need to say something, but I'll be quiet. Cool.
Okay, cool. Are we just moving right into the practice?
Unless you want to chat.
No, I think I'm good. I mean, I'll say hi to everyone. I think you gave everyone a warning earlier that this is a little bit intense. So I think it's really important that you're not driving, that you're not operating any machinery. Don't, make a smoothie while you're doing this breath work. It's really intense breath work. It's very quick. A lot of people that I know love to do very extensive, long practices. This practice is very brief. And the reason for that is that I'm a teacher of fourth way work, and fourth way work is meant to be a work that is done inside of life. So it is the idea behind it is that you find enlightenment in the real world. You find enlightenment while working, while fucking, while having love affairs, while traveling the world, while being ambitious, while being, et cetera, et cetera. And the object of fourth way work is to observe yourself. And so this is an ecstatic breath work that is meant to tune you into the other side of your life, which is your soul. And in my understanding, your soul is your soulmate. Like, we're all out there looking for someone that we can spend our life with. But essentially, what we're most in love with is our soul. And that's why we love falling in love so much, because when we fall in love, we get to like hang out with our own soul for like, 6 weeks. And then, of course, reality kicks back in and we turn into the schmucks that we always were. And so does the person we were in love with. And we're like, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. But having a love affair with your actual soul is fortifying forever. And so that is why fourth way work is so incredibly fortifying. I'm so excited to have you all here. I think Russell's getting a pillow. So I'm going to describe to you what we're doing. And sometimes when I do this, I just do it. You can do it just plain seated, but we're going to do the full thing here. So let me get on my knees. So get on your knees wherever you are. And you can't see my full body. Let me just see like that. So you're going to be sitting on your knees like that. And then when we come up, you're going to come up like that. And your hands are going to be in the air like this. And the reason for that is because if you do fall forward and faint, you can catch yourself with your hands. And the breath, once you guys all get settled, I'll give you a description of how we're going to do the breathing, because it's very important that you do it in a very specific way. And, I recommend you do this for a long time before you instruct anyone in it or anything like that. It's a very, very delicate practice, and I'm sure you'll experience. Everyone is different too, and every single round, and Russell can attest to this, every round is different. So for instance, if we do 5-6 rounds inside this session, 4 of them you may faint and 2 of them you may feel nothing at all. So it really is dependent on how relaxed you are. Okay, so the breath is always through the mouth. You're breathing in through the mouth like this, and out through the mouth like this. Okay, and you're never breathing through the nose. And on the 3 breaths, you're going in and out like this. We'll do 3 of those. And on the 4th one, you come up, and I'm just gonna flip this a little because I'm getting up. So you're gonna hold the breath, You're going to puff the belly out like you're pregnant. So you can't see it, but I'm puffing my belly out like I'm pregnant. And then you're going to elongate your chin, looking up at the ceiling above you, unless you're outside looking at the sky. So the full pose looks like this. Belly out, chin up, hold the breath. And then after you've held the breath for about 3-4 seconds, you hit your chest a little and come back down. So you're not going to see me because I'm going to come out of frame. So it's very important that you remember this final thing. In fact, I'm going to show you it right here. So what you're going to see is my belly. But what you're going to be doing is this. Hold the breath, belly out, chin up. Hold the breath, hit the chest, and then release. Yes, you can modify a bit. I can't see what you're saying, but you can just sit in a chair doing this. You can sit in lotus doing this. You do not need to get on your knees. I know some people have bad knees, so please don't worry about that. Just try it in any way that you can. The main focus point is you need to be completely relaxed. You're inhaling 4 times, and on the 4th time, you hold the breath, puff the belly out, and elongate the chin to look up at the sky above you.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
someone was saying about like on the chat that Maya just pointed out, they've got a spinal injury, and I suppose it's kind of, if you do have like sort of serious injuries or whatever, you should do how you treat your body how you normally would in a situation for exercise or whatever. But if you don't have any injuries or whatever, then do the whole thing on the knees. But obviously, I guess Biet, you should do some sort of qualifying data.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a doctor, and I see someone asking if you have heart problems, would you do this? I don't know the answer to that question. You have to decide for yourself.
I
if you
would,
feel safe.
but maybe you would.
I would. Again, I would. But I was pregnant actually, and I did it less during pregnancy, like less intensely, because I just didn't want to like go into labor or something. So, but I did do it. So it really is just a question of like how much. Oh my goodness. Hello. So what we're gonna do is just try it. Bear is coming. Hello. God, the sweetness. I love it.
Fortunately, you can't smell it.
Animals. Okay, guys. So if you're afraid to do this, please just, don't. And if you're afraid to do it on a psychological level, please do. Anything that I'm afraid of, I do anyway, unless it's like what you're saying, like you think you might actually die. Oh, another thing to note is, and Russell, tell me if this is true for you, I have actually thought, oh my fuck, I'm going to die while doing this exercise. So if you do have that thought, oh my God, I think I might die, just remember, I've had that thought thousands of times. It's never happened. It's just like a sensation. And I do believe it's because this practice is specifically getting us prepared for death. Prior to having done this work, I was so afraid of death. I didn't like death. I didn't want to die. And then when I started doing this breath, it really came to me that imagine that death is like 10,000 times as blissful as this breath work. If every time I do it, I think, oh my God, I'm going to die, and then I don't, maybe this is what death will feel like. Now, again, that's just a proposal. I have no idea what death is going to feel like, but it might feel like this breath work, and that would be amazing. Okay, everyone get ready. Is there any other questions? No, everyone's ready. Okay, Russell, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So just setting an intention before we begin, allowing yourself to imagine that this breath will give you the energy for whatever it is your dream in life is, the next step of your vision for your life. And let's begin. Arms up, inhale 1 through the mouth. Release. Relaxing even deeper, inhale 2. And release. Relaxing deeper, 3. And release. And then 4, come up. Hold the breath, belly out, chin up. Hit the chest, come down. Noticing how you feel. If we're all still here.
One person has turned into 3 guitars. That's Peter and Tasha, if you're interested in looking at them in your view. Neo looks well. Debbie Burridge is doing okay. Linda Easto, hello. Jessica. I mean, I must say, I can't imagine doing it without the whole knees thing and the standing up on the 4th. And, I'm a junkie, so I'm looking to experience God stroke death. But that's not necessarily for everybody, but I got a nice little hit there, I'd have to tell you.
Let's do a few more rounds, and once you've done this a bunch of times, you can do it on airplanes, you can do it in the back of taxis. I've done it on the stage before. I've guided thousands of people. I'm high as F on the stage and people are like, they have no idea. That's the beautiful thing about fourth way work, is that it's like, it's a secret. It's happening without, I don't have to like put on a turban. I don't have to light any incense. Like, you can do this at a McDonald's if you want to, but I really hope you don't do it at a McDonald's, because that sounds like a bad trip. Okay, guys, round 2, preparing yourself. Okay, here we go. Inhale 1 and release. Inhale 2 and release. Relax even deeper. 3 and release. 4, come up. Hold the breath, belly out, chin up. Hit the chest, calm down.
Jezzy's getting it. Some people are having, I can see, some quite powerful experiences. We'll have a little chat after this and we'll do a review and debrief. And remember, don't judge yourself. All of us have our own individual versions of this. And if it's making any of you uncomfortable or dizzy or whatever, then, give yourself a break. But yeah, it's working for me. And put some comments and chat if you want to about how you feel and how effective this is for you, and whether or not this will form an active part of our community potentially up in Scotland with Lesley, that will be forming straight after this chat.
Okay, let's do another round. Remembering that if it feels good to you, great. And also remembering that I am not a scary, bad person or a cult leader. I'm not going to do anything to harm you. It's really important that you feel safe. My only motive is for you to feel the love that I have felt on a planet where I spent most of my life feeling afraid and feeling alone. And so it is possible to not feel that way on this planet. But that is the aim of my sharing this breath with you guys, nothing else. Because I know it can feel a little scary. You're like, whoa, okay, I'm in this state now. What are they going to do? Nothing. We're just here to love on you. So let's do the next round. Preparing again, allowing yourself to go deeper than you've gone before. Inhale 1 and release. Inhale 2 and release. 3, relax deeper. Release. Stand up. Inhale 4, relax deeper. Hold the breath, belly out, chin up. Hit the chest, calm down. Wiggle your body around if you feel the energy moving. We are made out of this stuff. For anyone who's looking for this somewhere outside you, this is the evidence that it's nowhere but inside you. And if it's in there, then it's everywhere else too. Russell, shall we do one last one, or are you good?
Yeah, we'll do one last one and then we'll have a little chat and a debrief.
Okay, guys, if you feel comfortable, you can put your hands together in prayer for this final one. If you don't, no problem. I'm not pushing like a bearded God on you, don't worry. Just bringing yourself into your heart center and ask whatever energy you believe in inside and outside you to help you with this last breath. You can say something internally like, please help me. And begin. Inhale 1 and release. Inhale 2, relax deeper. Inhale 3 like jello. And release. And 4, come up on your knees, inhale. Hold the breath, belly out, chin up. And release. My little pillows back.
Thanks, Maya. And thank you very much for that, Biet. What I'll
Of
do now
course.
is I'll have a little chat round and see how people feel. And I'll be very interested to hear from you guys what kind of experiences you had there. If there's anyone who particularly wants to speak about that, maybe yeah, let me know. I'm going to skip through a few of you there, like a Samuel McCarthy. Do you want to talk about it? Or Darren Webster, do you want to talk about it? Or Darren's up for it. Hello, Darren. Unmute yourself now. An invitation should be coming your way. And if you select unmute, tell me, how was that, mate?
Trippy. Like a really mild trip. And it's still here. It's floaty. Yeah, I'm not a drug taker anymore.
Right.
I like to practice Wim Hof. It takes a lot longer to get to this state, and that was, yeah, I'm really mellow.
It was pretty intense. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Now there's Jenny James I can see up there, and Henny. Well done, Darren. I'm glad you can get your high without ruining your life and other people's. Now I feel where you're from, my brother. Jenny James, Hannah Rappaport, and anyone if you fancy chatting as I go past you, just give us a little wave. Tash, my sister, I know you're going to be up for a chat, even if you're not chatting about this thing.
That was so wicked, man. Oh my God, I used to do drugs.
Same.
And this is free drugs. It's
Free
amazing.
drugs.
How often should we be indulging in this?
Oh, look, she's addicted. She's done it. She's addicted to it.
I would
Is it
say
like for how many? I don't want to overdo it, but
yeah, you can do it every day, and you can do up to 15 rounds of 4 breaths.
oh wow,
So,
thank you so much.
I generally
man.
do only like 3-4 rounds in a row, just because
Yeah.
it feels like enough.
Say hi.
Maybe not when
It's
you're driving
enlightening.
the bus, though, Tash. Eh?
No. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate
Who's
that.
your
You-
kid that was just coming in frame? Is that one of yours?
Ezra, yeah. Say hi, Ezra.
Ezra,
Say hi.
where's your little face?
I was trying to get him to join us. Is it age appropriate for him? He's 9. He's 10 this year.
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit later, like
Okay,
in
16. Come back in 6 years, son.
Well, hopefully.
you.
Also at
Appreciate
dinner
that.
time. I mean,
Yeah.
6 years seems. He's only 9, Tash. Come on.
Oh,
Tash,
wow. Thank you for your gift. That's the gift you gifted me. I turned 8 last week, and now you've just made it more intense. So thank you so much.
Congratulations on your 8 years in recovery, Tash. I know how hard you've worked for it. Well done. And thank you for joining us on the call. And I'm glad that you found Biet's work helpful. Let's see who else is up there. And as I call you, let me know if you fancy it. What about Sage? Sage looks like he's been living his whole life waiting for an experience like this. Oh no, you found Meshach Johns. We'll go to Sage
Yeah,
next.
I'm here.
How did you find that, mate? And what's your name, by the way?
Wicked. Yeah, I found me. It's Meshach.
Meshach.
Meshach. Yeah, thanks, Russell. Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox for me because I felt lightheaded, but in an exciting way. So I had no fear behind that sensation. But I feel spacious. Yeah, I feel like I'm occupying quite a nice space at the moment. So yeah, I'm all for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jack, thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll get Sage now. And while we're waiting for Sage, thanks, Meshach, and thanks for joining us on this call, you lot, and thanks for being part of. Do you know what happens to me? I experience I'm a dramatic person, so I experience a kind of death. What I feel like is that the experience of being Russell goes sort of for a moment offline. It goes offline. I'm not Russell anymore for a little moment, but I am something. That's what freaks me out. It's like the whole Russell track drops out. But there's someone there, or not necessarily someone, because it's not verbal, it's not even symbolic, but there is some sort of existence that is impersonal. Now, I think if you were a medical materialist, what you'd say is, no, what you've done there is you've hyperventilated and your sensory organs can't function correctly, but your mind or being is grappling with that. But for me, who has a sort of ultimately a spiritual worldview, what it feels like is a kind of, as if there is a sort of, as if the individual emerges from a common pool of beingness. As Terence McKenna puts it, like when the water of illusion drains away, we see that we are not separate, but that we are all connected under the water as islands are in, you get it. Anyway, let's go to Sage now, shall we? What are you saying, mate?
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Mate, we can see you, we can hear you, we know where you've been and we know what you've taken.
Okay. I just want to thank you. I've been following for a while and in recovery myself. I don't have to go to work till noon, and I agree with the comments, and I'm just happy to be here. I'm super, super happy with what you're creating, and I'm delighted to be a part of it.
Thank you, Sage. I started to get like this feeling of something evolving. I won't have to do any real work, will I? I'll just float along on it and it will carry everything, and I'll just do my bit that I'm nominated to do, which hopefully will involve wearing robes and being carried around, and some kind of fanning would be nice. I mean, I do like it. And it's not a deal breaker. Did anyone, thank you, Sage, lots of love. But yeah, I love them goggles. How's your baby?
Oh my God. It's getting cuter because she's saying full sentences now. I mean, she's about the same age as your little girl, the younger one, right?
I've got a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah, mine's 2.5. So they're like the same age. It's that crazy age where like she broke out with a full sentence. Her father brought her a fork the other day. You know, she asked for a fork and he brought it to her and she said, "That is so helpful to me."
Little darlings, aren't they? How do you not just get them and give them so much love that they're squished? That's what they need. I nearly do that. Sometimes you want to cuddle them things almost till they're just powder. Now, does anyone else want to join in? Jenny Savory, you seem like you're having a lively experience. Jenny Savory, do you want to join us for a moment? And then perhaps we could go over Jenny Savory. Hello, darling.
Hello. Yeah, that was really weird. And it made me like sort of like euphoric, and it just made me want to laugh, actually. Like really weirdly, I actually felt really full of joy and because I nearly passed out and hit my head on the desk. But yeah, and I think it was the fact that it was just something different. I genuinely haven't felt like that before.
Oh, that's so lovely. Well, listen, what a lovely thing to know that this experience is there. But yeah, you've got books and things like that you can direct people to. What should people, what's your website and stuff like that, Biet?
It's bietsimkin.com. And I have a book out. It's called Don't Just Sit There, which can be read as Don't Just Sit There, or can be read as Don't Just Sit There. So, you know, it really is not an instructive for any one thing.
It's like you've released a book when you've not even finished the title. Now, listen, let's see if there's anyone else wants to say anything. As I look through, because we'll wrap this. We'll probably wrap this up in a minute. I like the look of Bilal Gill. Here's Bilal. What are you saying?
Hey, how's it going, Russell?
Yeah, good, mate. Where are you? You in England?
Yeah, I'm in Leicester, so not too far.
Yeah, that's England.
Yeah.
That's part of England. That's one of the main bits.
Yeah, it was really good. Because I know a few people that do a lot of breath work, so I haven't really experienced any of it. And then obviously you sent the email, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. So yeah, it was. I think I'm definitely going to practice it a few more times, because it feels like it's one of those. Sometimes it takes me a while with like meditation stuff. I kind of struggle with it a little bit, but kind of considering hearing everyone and how well it's worked for them, I definitely want to persevere with it. I actually do feel more chilled. It's weird. Mm-hmm. For me, it was a slow gradual. I kind of did it. I sat there and was just listening, but it just slowly chilled me out. I don't know if that sounds right.
My advice would be, if you're after a big, hard experience, as it were, I really stick that chin up high and I really push that belly out hard. And then when I do that out thump, you know, like, but me, like, once Biet did it for me and a couple of my mates who were also like me, recovering drug addicts, and like sort of we, like, you could see that we was going for it, like hitting it like a pipe like that, and like a sort of, and like like at the end, so, and then sort of we were all sort of sprawled on the floor, like, oh man, everyone was all sort of excited, like irresponsible drug addicts. Now, you know, but as I've always said about addiction, the impulse to destroy yourself, to get out of your head, is not necessarily a bad one if you translate it from your physical self to your egoic self. If what you're trying to achieve is a kind of transcendence through self-annihilation, well, that's a really positive spiritual impulse. The problem is we don't have the means, we don't have the tools, we don't have the lessons, we don't have the teachers. So we try and bring about spiritual transcendence through narcotic means. All of us are doing that. I don't think we choose whether or not we believe in God. Devotion is as much in us as our other appetites, our appetites for food, our appetites for sex. We just choose what type of God. Is our God going to be a humanitarian God of building cultures, or is it going to be a God of destruction, or is it going to be a God that is you know, a cultural God granted to us by the conditions of our birth? You know, this impulse for devotion, it seems to me, is part of our condition. Why else do you get people devoted to football teams or pop stars? What is this impulse? What is this tendency? If we can direct it towards something that harmonizes us with one another, ourselves, and nature, oh, then why not do it? Anyway, guys, listen, I think I better wrap this up, because I feel like it's, well, I know that it's 5:33 in the country I'm in. I'm not sure what time it is in the country you're in. Thank you, Biet, for joining us. That was magnificent. Guys, if you if you are financially in a position to do so, remember there's my book called Revelation. The links are available in the chat, although I didn't do that myself, because I, you know, me saying put the links in the chat, I might as well say, you know, sort of like put a mouse in the bowler hat. I mean, none of it means anything to me. I don't know how these things actually take place, but Demaya, thankfully, is in her 20s and knows how to do these things. We will be doing more of these calls. Remember, if you can get 10 people to sign up to the mailing list, then you will get a Zoom call with me. If you have any inquiries, particularly about mental health, email help@russellbrand.com. If you just want to chat, send it to hello. We answer the help ones more quickly, obviously. And Biet has given you the details to her excellent work. Thanks again, Biet, not only for your work, but for your bangs, which is American for fringe. What a haircut, what a look, what a woman, what an exercise. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. Remember, there's some lovely things have been said in this conversation. Remember when Biet said that thing about fear and not spending our lives in fear. Think about the moment of joy when we saw Tash there come alive on the screen. Think about Keelan's innocence there when he's making those inquiries. So remember, I care about you and I love you, and my hope is that we can build something different together, that the answers and solutions are within us, and if we can collectively achieve some kind of harmony, there is no limit to what we might achieve. Thank you very much for joining me on this. Well, let's unmute everybody and allow the cacophony to reign.
Love you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
I love you guys.